It's 6:16, you're watching Wake Up Northwest, and in this week's Madeline Motivates, I get it. It can be tough to get yourself to do anything while stuck at home. And if you're like me, there are some days when you just can't find the motivation to get off the couch and get moving or get whatever you need to get done. Well, it's not always easy, but there are ways to stay motivated during the stay-at-home order. And that's why we have Patrick Zuniga, consultant with My Mind, My Power and local football coach. He's on the phone with us right now to share his advice. Good morning, Patrick. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Madeline. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I love the way you refer to this. You call this activating motivation at home. And what are some ways that we can do that?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is we need to view ourselves as our own masterpiece. We need to be the artist that we're creating. So if we look at ourselves and say, what do I want to do today and what do I want to become? You know, that's the first step, is to view ourselves as our own masterpiece.
Yeah,
the second thing we need to do is figure out where we fit in with the people around us. And that's what I call the me-we puzzle. There's two different types of goal orientations. There's task orientation and ego orientation. We need to know where we stand and where the people around us stand, because motivation is, you can transfer it and it can dominate. And if you're around too many like-minded people and you're aiming at the wrong thing, then you could be negatively motivated. You want to kind of avoid that too. Interesting.
So you're saying you should kind of check to see where your motivation is coming from? Is that what you mean by that?
Yeah, you always want to keep in mind what your motives are, what your reasons why for doing things, and those could guide your choices, actions, and behaviors. For example, this morning I got up and took a walk before 6 a.m. I never do that, but I'm highly motivated to be on the phone with you today.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's an internal motivation. So you also talk about using imagination by making if-then plans. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, there was a study recently, a 2016 study, that said if you have an implementation plan in mind, right, things rarely go right for you. But if you have an if-then implementation plan, like if something goes wrong, then what are you going to do? That will help guide your behaviors and keep you aiming at that goal.
Right, and especially because right now everything's so uncertain, so it helps to have that, you know, kind of secondary plan in place. All right, so what do you mean? This has to be my favorite one. Harness the power of boredom. What does that mean?
Well, there's a few studies that say that boredom is actually good for you, and boredom helps you regulate yourself. It's a process, it creates meaning for your life, but there's kind of like this point of diminishing return of boredom where you can only be bored for so long. And when you recognize that point of boredom where you're like, I can't take it anymore, that's the time where you got to identify what's your next big goal, what's your next big project, and what are your steps to get it done.
Absolutely, and just embrace it. Okay, so finally, Patrick, what are some positive habits that you can start doing now to lead to long-term success?
You have to look at the four drivers of behavior. The three drivers: the motivation, awareness of opportunity, and habits. Awareness of opportunity means that you recognize that there's ways to get to your goal right now. And then you have to look at your habits. Are your habits, or the things you do every single day just because you do them, do those get you to your goal? Or do they kind of misdirect you? So really, when we look at the micro behaviors of motivation, it's the things that we do every single day. Every minute matters, that we're working towards what we want to become or what we want to achieve. So really, it's just boiling it down to your habits. And then the secondary thing I would say is being aware of the opportunities to achieve your goals.
Absolutely, and I'll just make one more point. It's, you know, this is the time to examine your daily habits, because you're spending so much time, maybe it's with yourself or with your family, but you can really look at those to see how that's helping you or hurting you. That's great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, yeah, thank you, Patrick. We appreciate, you know, finding that motivation. It's definitely hard, but, you know, try to use this time, try to harness, you know, the power of boredom, embrace it. We're all going through it, and hopefully you can see something bright on the other side of this. All right, it is now 6:20. You're watching Wake Up Northwest, and we do have more news and weather coming up in just a couple of minutes.